My wife told the valet I was just dropping her off. The manager saw my face and went white. 5 staff members surrounded me. Sir, we didn't know you'd be here today. She stood frozen, watching them treat me like I owned the place. Because I did. And she had no idea what was about to unravel. My name is Robert Harrison, though most people call me Rob. I'm 52 years old, and I've spent the better part of my life with my hands in Iowa soil and my mind on crop yields. My wife Isabel and I have been married 26 years. We have 3 kids, Brandon, 24, working in agricultural finance in Chicago, Connor, 16, a junior at County High, and Lily, 10, who still believes her dad can fix anything. I built Riverbend Country Club 12 years ago on land my grandfather left me, not because I wanted the spotlight, but because the community needed something. A place where farmers could shake hands with bankers, where deals happened over coffee instead of lawyers. I funded it through the Harrison Land Trust, kept my name off the plaques. That was the point, giving back without the noise. Last Tuesday changed everything. Isabel asked me to drive her to the club. She had a tennis round with the ladies, something about a charity tournament. I was heading into town anyway to meet with the co-op manager, so I said sure. She spent the whole drive checking her phone, fixing her hair in the visor mirror. Didn't say 10 words to me. When we pulled up to the entrance, she stepped out fast. The young valet, probably 19, jogged over. I rolled down my window to hand him the keys. He's just dropping me off, Isabel said quickly, not even looking at me. He's not staying. The kid nodded, reaching for the keys. Then he glanced at my face. His expression shifted. He straightened up like someone had yanked a string attached to his spine. Mr. Harrison, he said, quieter now. I nodded once. The kid's face went pale. He touched his earpiece, the kind the staff wore for coordination, and muttered something I couldn't catch. Within 30 seconds, the club manager, Richard, came speed walking out of the main entrance. Behind him, 4 more staff members followed. 2 from valet, 1 from the dining room, another I recognized from groundskeeping. Richard stopped in front of the car, slightly breathless. Mr. Harrison, he said, his voice carrying that tone people use when they're surprised and try not to show it. We didn't know you'd be here today. Would you like us to prepare anything? The Founders Lounge is available if you'd prefer privacy. I could feel Isabel freeze beside the car. She turned slowly, her tennis bag sliding down her shoulder. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out first. I'm just dropping off my wife, I said calmly, meeting Richard's eyes. But I appreciate it. Richard nodded. Of course, sir. We'll park your truck in the executive section. Isabel's hand tightened around the strap of her bag. Her face had gone stiff. That mass people were when their brain is scrambling to recalculate everything they thought they knew. The other staff members stood at a respectful distance, waiting. Wait, Isabel finally said, her voice tight. What's going on? I didn't answer her. I just looked at Richard. Take good care of her, I said. She's got an important match today. Richard smiled, professional as ever. Always, Mr. Harrison. I pulled away slowly, watching Isabel in the rearview mirror. She stood there in the circle drive, frozen, while the staff moved around her, like she was a statue they had to work around. One of them, Maria from the front desk, said something to her, gestured toward the entrance. Isabel nodded, but she didn't move right away. Just stood there, staring at the back of my truck as I drove off. That night, she didn't come home until after 10. I was in the study, reviewing grain futures on my laptop. I heard her heels on the hardwood, then the sound of her purse hitting the kitchen counter harder than necessary. She appeared in the doorway, arms crossed. You want to tell me what that was about? She asked. I looked up. What? Don't play dumb, Rob. The staff at the club. They treated you like... She stopped, searching for the word. Like I matter? I offered. Isabel's question hung in the air between us. The study felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had shifted inward. She wanted an answer, but I wasn't ready to give her one. Not yet. Not when I was still putting the pieces together myself. We've been married 26 years, I said finally, closing my laptop. You really never asked what I did with Grandpa's land. Her expression flickered. You said you sold some of it. Development or something. Development. I repeated slowly. That's one way to put it. She shifted her weight, uncomfortable now. Rob, if you've got something to say, just say it. I stood up, walked past her to the kitchen, Pour myself a glass of water from the tap. She followed, heels clicking against the floor. Lily showed me something today, I said, keeping my voice level. On her iPad. Isabel went still. What are you talking about? I pulled out my phone, opened the video file Lily had sent me that afternoon. Our 10-year-old daughter had been playing in the living room yesterday, while Isabel's mother, Margaret, visited. Lily had her iPad propped up on the couch, recording herself doing some kind of craft project. She did that sometimes, made little videos for her friends. But the iPad's camera had captured more than glitter and construction paper. I hit play. Margaret's voice came through clearly. You should have married the Patterson boy, Margaret was saying. I told you that 26 years ago. He's a partner at that firm in Des Moines now. But you insisted on the farmer. Isabel's voice responded. Mom, please. Not now. I'm just saying, Margaret continued. You've wasted the best years of your life on someone who can't even get you into the right circles. Thank God you're finally doing something about it. There was a pause. Then Isabel spoke again, quieter. Kevin says I need to be patient. That we have to wait until. I stopped the recording. Looked at Isabel. Her face had lost all color. Lily came to me after school. I said quietly. She was upset. She said, Daddy, why does Grandma talk about you like that? Why does she say mean things? Isabel opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Rob, that's not. She was just venting. You know how my mother gets. Who's Kevin? I asked. She blinked. What? You heard me. Who's Kevin? He's a consultant, she said quickly. For the club's image rebranding. I've mentioned him before. No, I said. You haven't. The silence stretched between us. Somewhere in the house, I could hear the old furnace kicking on. The October wind rattled the windows. Lily asked me something else. I continued. She said, Daddy, why don't you want to be with us anymore? She said you told her I'm always too busy, that I care more about the farm than about her. Isabel's jaw tightened. I never said that. She's 10 years old, Isabel. She wouldn't make that up. Kids misunderstand things, my wife said, but her voice had lost its edge. She sounded tired now, defensive. I set my phone down on the counter. Connor came to me last week. Did you know that? She didn't answer. He told me something I didn't want to believe, I said. He told me you've been making him keep track of where I go, who I talk to, what time I get home. You gave him $100 every time he reported back to you. Isabel's eyes went wide. That's not, he's lying. Our 16-year-old son was crying when he told me. I said, my voice harder now. He said he felt like a spy, like he was betraying me. He said you told him it was to protect the family, that I might be hiding things. You were hiding things. Isabel shot back. You just proved that today. The club staff treating you like you own the place. I do own it, I said simply. The words landed like a physical blow. Isabel stepped backward, her hand reaching for the counter to steady herself. The Harrison Land Trust, I continued. Grandpa's land. The club sits on it. I funded the build. I structured the membership. I've been covering the operational shortfalls for 12 years. Richard answers to a board that answers to me. Why? She whispered. Why didn't you tell me? I looked at her for a long moment. Because you never asked. The next morning, Isabel left early. Said she had a breakfast meeting with the club's events committee. I didn't ask questions. Connor came down for cereal around 7, still half asleep, his hair sticking up in 3 different directions. Dad, he said quietly, pouring milk. I'm sorry about last week. About telling you what Mom made me do. I looked up from the farm report I'd been reading. Don't apologize for telling the truth. She hasn't talked to me since, he said. She just looks at me like I betrayed her or something. I set down my coffee. You didn't betray anyone. She put you in an impossible position. He nodded, but I could see the weight still sitting on his shoulders. 16 years old, and already caught in the middle of something he shouldn't have to navigate. My phone buzzed. Brandon calling from Chicago. I answered. Dad, I need to talk to you about something, he said without preamble. I heard what Mom's been saying about me. I stepped into the study, closed the door. What did you hear? Jake Romero's mom was at the club last week. She told Jake that Mom said I was a failure, that I keep asking for money because I can't hold down a real job. His voice was tight with anger. Dad, I make $95,000 a year at the firm. I've never asked her for a dime. I sat down heavily. When did you talk to Jake? Last night. He felt bad about it. Wanted to give me a heads up. Apparently Mom's been telling people I'm living beyond my means, that she's constantly bailing me out. He paused. Why would she say that? Because she's building a narrative, I said. One where she's the victim and everyone else is the burden. That's messed up, Dad. I know. We talked for another 10 minutes. I told him about the club, about the trust, about the fact that his mother had no idea what I'd built. He was quiet for a long time after that. So she's been playing you this whole time, he finally said. Looks that way. After we hung up, I sat in the study for a while thinking. Then I made a call to Jerry Walsh, an attorney I'd worked with on land contracts over the years. Asked him to recommend someone who specialized in family law. He gave me 2 names. I called the first one. That afternoon, I drove into town, stopped at the co-op to check on the grain elevator contracts, then headed to a coffee shop on Main Street. I'd arranged to meet someone, Linda Hartwell. The woman Isabel had been taking the kids to see for what she called family therapy sessions. Linda showed up 15 minutes late, wearing too much jewelry and carrying a yoga mat. She ordered some complicated drink with 3 modifiers and sat down across from me. Mr. Harrison, she said brightly, Isabel mentioned you might want to join a session. I'm not here for therapy, I said. I'm here because I looked you up. You're not a licensed therapist. Her smile faltered. I have certifications in life coaching, I interrupted, wellness consulting, but no actual degree in psychology or counseling. No license to practice therapy in Iowa. She set down her drink carefully. I help people. That's what matters. You've been meeting with my children, I said, keeping my voice level, asking them questions about me, about whether they feel neglected, whether they think I prioritize work over family. Those are standard questions for building a custody case. I finished. That's what this is, isn't it? Isabel's been setting the stage. Linda's expression hardened. I think this conversation is over. You're right, I said, standing up. Because if you contact my children again, I'll file a formal complaint with the state board. They take unlicensed practice pretty seriously. I walked out before she could respond. Got in my truck, sat there for a minute. My phone rang. Brandon again. Dad, I just got an email from Mom, he said. She wants to meet for dinner next week when she's in Chicago. Says she has a business proposition for me. I gripped the steering wheel. Don't go alone. What? If you meet her, record it. Keep your phone in your pocket. Voice memo running. Dad, she's planning something, Brandon, and I need to know what it is. 3 days later, Brandon called me from his apartment in Chicago. It was past 9 at night, and I was reviewing the quarterly financial for the farm operation when his name lit up my screen. I met with Mom tonight, he said without greeting. You were right. I recorded everything. I minimized the spreadsheet. What happened? She took me to some expensive steakhouse in River North. Ordered wine. Acted like everything was normal. Then halfway through dinner, she started talking about my future. He paused. She said she knows I've been struggling financially. You're not struggling. I told her that. She just smiled and said I was being proud, that she understood I didn't want to admit I needed help. His voice carried an edge I'd rarely heard. Then she told me my trust fund is almost empty. I sat up straighter. What? The college fund you and Grandpa set up. She said there's only about $23,000 left. That the rest went to my education and living expenses over the past few years. That's not possible, I said. There should be over $90,000 in that account. I checked it 6 months ago. I know, Brandon said, because after dinner, I went home and called the trust administrator. Took me 2 hours to get someone on the phone, but I finally did. Dad, she's been withdrawing money for the past 3 years. $1,500 here, $3,000 there. The administrator said she's listed as co-trustee, so she had legal access. I stood up, started pacing. What was she using it for? The withdrawal descriptions say educational expenses and beneficiary support. But Dad, I haven't lived at home in 6 years. I paid my own rent through college with the RA job and summer internships. The only thing you paid for was tuition, and that came from the 529 plan, not the trust. Where did the money go? I don't know, but it's gone. $67,000, just gone. He was quiet for a moment. She stole from me, didn't she? I stopped pacing, looked out the window at the dark fields beyond the house. Yeah, she did. There's more, Brandon said. At dinner, she made me an offer. Said if I testified in a divorce proceeding that you were always absent, always prioritizing work over family, she'd make sure I got properly compensated for my honesty. She actually said that. Not in those exact words. She was careful, but that's what she meant. I heard him take a breath. I told her I needed to think about it. She said I should think quickly, because these things move fast once they start. You did the right thing, I said, playing along. I've got the recording. Every word. After we hung up, I sat in the study for a long time. The numbers ran through my head. $67,000 from Brandon's trust. The $100 payments to Connor for spying. The fake therapy sessions with Linda Hartwell. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, methodical. I called Jerry Walsh despite the late hour. He answered on the third ring, groggy. Jerry, I need that family attorney's number again. The first one you mentioned. Rob, it's almost 10. I know. I need to move on this now. He gave me the number. I called, left a detailed message. The attorney, Patricia Keating, called back 20 minutes later. We talked for over an hour. I told her everything. The trust fund theft, the fake therapist, Connor's confession, the recording Brandon had made. How fast can you move on this? I asked. Fast, she said. But I need documentation. Bank records, the trust statements, anything showing the pattern. You'll have it by Monday morning. When I finally went upstairs, it was past midnight. Isabel's side of the bed was empty. I checked my phone. One text message, staying at the club tonight. Board meeting ran late. I didn't believe it for a second. The annual Riverbend Winter Gala was 3 weeks away when Isabel announced she'd secured a prime table. She'd been planning for months, coordinating with the events committee, making sure the right people would be seated nearby. This wasn't just a social event for her. It was a performance, and she'd cast herself as the lead. I wasn't supposed to attend. That was clear from the way she discussed it. Always, I'm attending, or my table, or my guests. She'd arranged her seating strategically. Gerald Brenner, who ran the largest agricultural supply company in the state, Tom and Susan Yates, old money from Cedar Rapids, and David Fletcher, a state senator who spent more time at fundraisers than the Capitol. The night before the gala, she tried one more time to uninvite me. Rob, you don't have to come, she said, standing in the bedroom doorway while I buttoned my dress shirt. I know these things aren't really your scene. I built the venue, I said mildly. Seems like my scene. Her jaw tightened. People are expecting a certain atmosphere. Business conversations, networking. You'd probably be bored. I'll manage. She didn't argue further, but her expression made it clear she wasn't happy about it. The next evening, I drove separately. Told her I had a farm equipment delivery to oversee first, which was true. By the time I arrived, the gala was already underway. Cars filled the lot, valet staff moving efficiently under the pavilion lights. I pulled up to the entrance. The young valet who'd recognized me weeks ago, his name was Tyler, practically jogged over. Mr. Harrison, good evening, he said. We'll get you parked right away. Thanks, Tyler. Inside, the main hall was transformed. White tablecloths, crystal, arrangements of winter flowers that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payment. The crowd was exactly what you'd expect. Polished, prosperous, everyone wearing their success like the name tags clipped to their jackets. I spotted Isabel immediately. She was at her table near the center, mid-conversation with Senator Fletcher, laughing at something he'd said. She hadn't seen me yet. Richard, the club manager, appeared at my elbow almost instantly. Mr. Harrison, he said quietly, we weren't sure you'd be attending. Would you like us to prepare the founder's table? Where's that located? Center position, elevated sight lines. It's traditionally reserved for legacy members and board leadership. That'll work. Richard nodded to one of the staff members, who immediately headed toward the seating area. Within minutes, there was movement near the center of the room. Isabel's table was being relocated, smoothly, professionally, but definitely relocated. Moved about 15 feet to the right and back one row. Isabel noticed. Her head turned sharply, tracking the staff members as they adjusted place settings. Her expression shifted from confusion to something harder when she saw me standing near the entrance with Richard. I walked through the room slowly. People I'd known for years nodded greetings. Some looked surprised to see me. Others, the ones who actually understood how things worked, weren't surprised at all. Senator Fletcher stood as I approached, not out of politeness, out of reflex. He'd been in politics long enough to recognize power structures, even the quiet ones. David, I said, shaking his hand. Rob, didn't know you'd be joining us tonight. Last-minute decision. Gerald Brenner stood next, then Tom Yates. Susan Yates smiled, but there was calculation behind it. She was reassessing, trying to figure out what she'd missed. Isabel remained seated for a beat too long. Then she stood slowly, her champagne glass gripped too tightly in one hand. "Rob," she said. Her voice was controlled, but I could hear the tension underneath. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it." Richard appeared again, gesturing toward the founder's table. "Mr. Harrison, whenever you're ready." I glanced at Isabel. "I'll catch up with you later." I could feel her eyes on my back as I walked away. The founder's table had a clear view of the entire room. Richard had understated it. This wasn't just good positioning. This was command central. Senator Fletcher ended up at my table 20 minutes later. So did Gerald Brenner. They migrated naturally, the way people do when they realize where the actual center of gravity is. Tom Yates followed. Even the keynote speaker, some entrepreneur from Silicon Valley who'd made a fortune in AG Tech, stopped by to introduce himself. Isabel sat at her relocated table, with Susan Yates and two couples I didn't recognize. She smiled when people looked her way, participated in conversations, but her eyes kept finding me. Each time they did, her smile got a little tighter. Halfway through dinner, the club's board president stood to make announcements, thanked the major donors, recognized committee members, mentioned upcoming renovations to the tennis facilities. And of course, he said, "We owe our deepest gratitude to the vision and generosity that made this institution possible." "Mr. Harrison, would you stand?" Every head in the room turned toward me. I stood briefly, acknowledged the applause, sat back down. It lasted maybe 15 seconds. But those 15 seconds rewrote every assumption Isabel had sold to that room. For days after the gala, Connor didn't come home from school. It was Lily who noticed first. She came into the kitchen where I was reviewing grain prices on my laptop, her backpack still on her shoulders. "Dad, Connor's not answering his phone," she said. "He was supposed to pick me up from Emily's house, but he never showed." I checked my watch. 4:30. School had ended at 3. "When did you last hear from him?" "Lunchtime. He texted me saying he'd get me at 4. I tried calling Connor. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Same result. I called the high school. Asked if anyone had seen him leave. The attendance office said he'd been marked present for all his classes, but had left campus right after final bell. Isabel wasn't home. She'd been gone most afternoons lately, citing various committee meetings and social obligations. I called her anyway. She answered on the 4th ring. "Connor's missing," I said. "He was supposed to pick up Lily, but never showed. His phone's off." There was a pause. "He's probably just with friends. You know how teenagers are. His phone is off." "Isabel, that's not normal for him." "I'm sure he's fine, Rob. Don't be dramatic." I hung up. Called Brandon in Chicago. "Your brother's not answering his phone. Did he mention anything to you? Plans, problems, anything?" "Not recently," Brandon said. "But Dad, he's been really quiet the last few weeks. When I called him last weekend, he barely said 10 words. I thanked him and hung up. Stood in the kitchen for a moment, thinking. Then I grabbed my truck keys. "Lily, stay here," I said. "Call me if Connor shows up." "Where are you going?" "To find your brother." I started with Connor's usual spots. The Dairy Queen, where his friends hung out. The basketball courts behind the middle school. The old grain elevator on Highway 30, where kids sometimes went to be alone. Nothing. It was getting dark when I remembered something Connor had said months ago. There was an old bus station on the edge of town, mostly abandoned except for 2 routes a day. Kids used it sometimes when they wanted to feel like they were going somewhere, even if they weren't buying tickets. I drove there, pulled into the crumbling parking lot. One bus sat at the platform, engine idling, destination sign reading Des Moines. A handful of people waited near the door with bags. Connor was sitting on a bench inside the small waiting area, a backpack between his feet. He wasn't looking at his phone, just staring at the floor. I walked in slowly, sat down next to him. Didn't say anything at first. "I wasn't actually going to leave," he said finally, his voice rough. "I just needed to feel like I could." "What happened?" He pulled his phone out of his pocket, unlocked it, handed it to me. A text thread with Isabel. I scrolled up, reading. "Mom, did you tell your father about the therapy sessions?" "Connor." He asked me. I couldn't lie. "Mom, you betrayed my trust. Everything I've done for this family, and you chose him." "Connor, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Mom, don't bother apologizing. You've made it clear whose side you're on. The messages went on. Each one from Isabel was sharper than the last, accusing him of disloyalty, of being manipulated, of not understanding what was really happening. Connor's responses got shorter and shorter until they stopped completely. I feel like I'm drowning, Dad, he said quietly. Like no matter what I do, somebody's mad at me. If I tell you the truth, Mom hates me. If I don't tell you, I'm lying to you. I can't win. I handed back his phone. You're not supposed to win. You're supposed to be 16 years old and not carrying this weight. She's my mom. I know, but what she's doing, his voice faltered. It's not right. The spying thing, the fake therapist, lying about Brandon. None of it's right. No, I agreed. It's not. We sat in silence for a few minutes. The bus outside revved its engine, preparing to leave. A man in a work jacket climbed aboard with a duffel bag. I wrote a note, Connor said, in my backpack. Said I needed to clear my head. That I'd call when I figured things out. Where were you planning to go? I don't know. Nowhere, really. I just wanted to feel like I had a choice. He looked at me. Does that make sense? Yeah, I said. It does. Connor came home with me that night. We stopped at the diner on Highway 30, sat in a back booth, ordered burgers neither of us finished. He talked some. Mostly he just sat there, looking relieved to be somewhere that wasn't moving. When we got back to the house, Isabel's car was in the driveway. I told Connor to go upstairs, take a shower, try to get some sleep. He nodded and headed up without argument. Isabel was in the living room, glass of wine in hand, staring at her phone. She looked up when I came in. You found him, she said. Not a question. Bus station. She took a sip of wine. He wasn't actually going to leave. He's being dramatic. He's breaking, I said. And you're the reason. Her expression hardened. Don't put this on me. You're the one who's been turning the kids against me. I haven't said a word against you to any of them. They're figuring it out on their own. She stood up, set down her glass with enough force that wine sloshed over the rim. You've been playing me, Rob. This whole humble farmer act, while you've been secretly running the club, controlling everything. I wasn't playing you. I was just living my life. You're the one who needed me to be small so you could feel big. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she grabbed her phone and purse. I'm staying at the club tonight. Fine. She walked toward the door, then stopped. By the way, I've been meaning to tell you. I've arranged something for Lily. I turned. What kind of something? A placement at Institut Lou Rosy in Switzerland. It's one of the finest boarding schools in the world. She'll start in January. The words took a second to register. You enrolled our 10-year-old daughter in a school in Switzerland. I secured a placement. It's highly competitive. She's lucky they had an opening. Without discussing it with me. You're never around to discuss anything, Isabel said. Someone has to make decisions about the children's futures. She's 10 years old, Isabel. She still brings her stuffed rabbit to bed, which is exactly why she needs more structure, more sophistication. She'll have opportunities there that. No, I said. She blinked. Excuse me. She's not going. Cancel it. I've already paid the deposit. $15,000. Then you've wasted $15,000. Her face flushed. You don't get to make this decision unilaterally. Neither do you, I said. But you tried anyway. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. I found the brochure, I continued. In your office. It was in the file with the divorce attorney consultations and the property valuation requests. This wasn't about Lily's education. This was about getting her out of the way. That's absurd. Is it? Because it looks like you're systematically removing obstacles. Discredit Brandon by calling him a failure. Turn Connor into your spy until he broke. And now ship Lily off to Europe, so she's not around to witness whatever you're planning. Isabel's jaw tightened. You're being paranoid. Am I? I pulled out my phone, opened the photos I'd taken of the documents in her office. These are emails between you and your mother. Planning custody arguments. Discussing how to present me as an absent father. Margaret even suggested you document every time I miss a school event or family dinner. I scrolled to another screenshot. This one's interesting. An email to Kevin Drake. You're image consultant. Except he's not talking about club branding here. He's talking about our future together, and once you're free of the deadweight. The color drained from her face. I've known for 3 weeks, Isabel. Ever since Lily showed me that recording. I've been watching, documenting, waiting to see how far you'd go. I put my phone away. Sending Lily to Switzerland? That's how far. She stood frozen in the doorway. Rob, you need to leave now. Tonight. Pack what you need and go. This is my house, too. Actually, I said quietly, it's not. The deed's in my name. The mortgage is in my name. I've been covering the property taxes alone for 26 years. You want to fight about it in court? We can do that. But tonight, you leave. Where am I supposed to go? The club. Your mother's house. Kevin's apartment. I don't particularly care. She grabbed her keys off the entry table, her hands shaking. You're going to regret this. I doubt it. After she left, I went upstairs. Checked on Connor. He was asleep with his headphones still in. Then I went to Lily's room. She was awake, sitting up in bed with her stuffed rabbit. Is Mom leaving? She asked quietly. I sat on the edge of her bed. For tonight, yeah. Because of me? No, sweetheart. Because of choices she made. Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Dad, I don't want to go to Switzerland. I know. You're not going anywhere. She hugged her rabbit tighter. Promise. Promise. Patricia Keating, my attorney, called me at 6 in the morning 5 days later. I was already up, reviewing the week's grain market reports in the kitchen with coffee. Rob, I need you to come to my office today, she said. Something's come up. What kind of something? The kind that needs to be seen to be believed. I met her downtown at 9. Her office was on the 3rd floor of an old building that had been converted from a bank. She had documents spread across her conference table when I arrived. A colleague of mine handles event planning litigation, Patricia said, gesturing for me to sit. Disputes over deposits, contract breaches, that sort of thing. Yesterday, she received a call from the Ashford estate, the wedding venue out by the lake. That's the one. Apparently, they have a booking for September 14th. Full-day rental, ceremony, and reception, 150 guests. She slid a document across the table. The booking name is Isabel Drake. I stared at the paper. Drake, as in Kevin Drake. That would be my assumption. The deposit was $50,000. Paid in full back in July. July, I repeated. 4 months ago. Patricia nodded. The venue called my colleague because they're getting nervous. The balance is due in 30 days, and Isabel's been avoiding their calls. They want to know if they should consider the booking abandoned. She pulled out another document. This is a contract with a caterer in Des Moines, dated August 2nd. $20,000 deposit for a wedding reception of approximately 150 people. Another document. A bridal boutique in Chicago. Dress ordered and fitted in June. $25,000. Custom design, already completed. The documents kept coming. Floors contracts. A band booking. Hotel room blocks. Transportation arrangements. She'd planned an entire wedding, right down to the honeymoon reservation at a resort in the Maldives, all while still married to me. The timeline is interesting, Patricia said. Most of these contracts were signed in June and July. The venue booking was the earliest, in May, which means she's been planning this for at least 6 months, while living in my house, sleeping in my bed, while presenting herself at the club as your devoted wife, Patricia added. The level of calculation here is remarkable. I sat back, processing. Can we use this in divorce proceedings? Absolutely. It demonstrates premeditated intent to dissolve the marriage. It shows financial deception. She was spending marital assets on plans for another relationship. And it completely undermines any narrative she might present about trying to save the marriage or being blindsided by separation. What about custody? It helps there too. Courts don't look favorably on parents who prioritize their romantic interests over stability for their children. The fact that she was wedding planning while still living with 3 kids, that plays very poorly. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Dad, call me when you can. Something weird happened. I excused myself, stepped into the hallway, called him back. Mom just called me, Brandon said. Wants to meet next week. Says she has important news to share about family changes. What kind of changes? She wouldn't specify. Just said it was good news, and she wanted me to hear it from her first. He paused. Dad, she sounded happy. Like, genuinely excited. She probably is, I said. She thinks she's about to start a new life. Without us. That seems to be the plan. After I hung up, I went back into Patricia's office. File the papers, I said. Today, if possible. She nodded. I'll have them ready by this afternoon. Brandon flew in from Chicago the week before Thanksgiving. He'd asked for the time off, told his boss it was a family emergency. In a way, it was. We met at the farm office, me, Brandon, Connor, and Patricia Keating. I debated whether to include Connor, but he'd asked to be there. Said he was tired of being protected from the truth. Patricia laid out the situation methodically. The divorce filing, the custody arrangement I was seeking, the evidence we'd compiled. Brandon listened without interrupting, his expression getting harder with each new revelation. The trust fund theft, Patricia said. That's criminal. We could pursue charges if you want to, Brandon. He shook his head. I just want it back. And I want her to know that I know. Fair enough, Patricia said. She turned to Connor. Your testimony about the surveillance she had you doing, that's going to be important in the custody hearing. Connor nodded, his jaw set. Whatever you need. 2 days later, Brandon got the call he'd been expecting. Margaret, Isabel's mother, wanted to meet him for lunch in Des Moines. He agreed immediately. I helped him prep. We ran through potential scenarios, discussed how Margaret might approach things. Brandon wore a wire. Not exactly legal without her consent, but Iowa was a one-party consent state. As long as he was part of the conversation, we were clear. Margaret chose an expensive restaurant downtown. Brandon recorded everything on his phone, which I'd help him position in his jacket pocket. The recording was damning. Margaret started with small talk, asked about his job, his apartment, whether he was seeing anyone. Then she shifted gears. Your mother is going through a difficult time, Margaret said on the recording. This divorce is going to get ugly. Your father is being unreasonable. He seems pretty reasonable to me, Brandon replied. That's because you don't see the full picture. He's been hiding assets, controlling everything behind the scenes. Your mother deserves better. She was planning to marry someone else while still married to Dad. How is that deserving better? Margaret's voice went cold. Who told you that? I figured it out myself. I'm not stupid, Grandma. There was a long pause. Then Margaret said, Brandon, I'm going to be direct with you. This custody battle is going to determine a lot of things. Who gets the house? Who gets access to the club? Who maintains the family reputation? Your testimony could matter significantly. What kind of testimony? The truth about your father. How he was never present. How he prioritized work over family. How he created an environment where your mother felt invisible. That's not the truth, though. It's a version of the truth, Margaret said. And in court, that's what matters. Perspective. What's in it for me? Brandon asked, playing it exactly like we discussed. Margaret's tone brightened. I'm prepared to offer you $250,000. Cash. Deposited in an account of your choosing. Completely separate from any divorce settlement. Think of it as a gift. Compensation for the difficulties you've endured. In exchange for lying about my father. In exchange for being honest about your experiences. About feeling neglected. About watching your mother struggle while your father built his empire. Brandon let the silence stretch. Then he said, I need to think about it. Don't think too long. These proceedings move quickly once they begin. When Brandon played me the recording that evening, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger exactly. More like confirmation. This was who they were. This was what they'd always been. What do we do with this? Brandon asked. We give it to Patricia, I said. She'll know how to use it. 3 days later, Patricia filed a motion to include evidence of witness tampering. The recording was entered into the court record. Margaret's attempt to buy Brandon's testimony became part of the official file. Isabel's attorney filed an emergency motion to suppress the evidence, claiming it was obtained illegally. The judge reviewed Iowa's one-party consent law and denied the motion. The recording stood. That night, I got a text from Isabel. 3 words. How could you? I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The divorce proceedings took 4 months. It felt longer. Every week brought new filings, new accusations, new attempts by Isabel to reframe the narrative. Her attorney was good, expensive and aggressive. But Patricia was better. The custody hearing was the hardest part. Connor had to testify about the surveillance. Lily had to explain why she didn't want to go to Switzerland. Brandon submitted a written statement about the trust fund theft and Margaret's bribery attempt. Isabel sat at the plaintiff's table, looking wounded and betrayed, like she was the victim in all this. Her attorney painted me as a manipulative control freak who'd secretly amassed power while keeping his wife in the dark. They tried to spin the club ownership as evidence of deception rather than what it actually was, a gift to the community that I'd never asked for recognition for. It didn't work. The judge saw through it. The evidence was too clear. The wedding planning while still married. The theft from Brandon's trust. The attempt to ship Lily overseas. Margaret's recorded bribery attempt. The fake therapist. All of it painted a picture of someone willing to sacrifice everything and everyone for her own ambitions. The final decree came down in March. I got primary custody of Connor and Lily. Brandon was an adult, so custody wasn't an issue, but he made it clear he was staying with me. Isabel got supervised visitation twice a month. The financial settlement was stark. The house remained mine. The farm operation remained mine. She got her personal accounts and a lump sum payment of $300,000, less than a third of what her attorney had demanded. No alimony. The judge called her behavior egregious and said she'd forfeited any claim to long-term support. Her membership at Riverbend Country Club was formally revoked. The board voted unanimously. Richard, the manager, called to inform me personally. He said she'd taken it badly, shown up at the club, demanding an explanation, had to be escorted off the property by security. Kevin Drake disappeared around that time. According to mutual acquaintances, he'd moved to Colorado. The wedding at Ashford Estate was canceled. Isabel lost all her deposits. Margaret stopped speaking to me entirely, which was fine. She moved Isabel into her house in Cedar Rapids. From what I heard through Connor, it wasn't going well. Two controlling personalities under one roof rarely does. Brandon got his trust fund money back. I made him whole from my personal accounts while we pursued legal recovery. He used some of it for a down payment on a condo in Chicago. Said he was ready to build something that was actually his. Connor started seeing a real therapist. Not a fake one. Someone Patricia recommended who specialized in family trauma. He was doing better. Still had rough days, but he was talking more, smiling occasionally. He'd started hanging out with friends again. Lily never asked about Switzerland after that first night. She stayed in her same school, kept her same friends. Sometimes I catch her looking at me, like she was checking to make sure I was still there. I always was. As for me, I kept farming, kept running the co-op board, kept managing the Harrison Land Trust. The club continued operating smoothly. Richard and I met quarterly to review finances and discuss improvements. People asked if I regretted not telling Isabel about the club sooner. If I thought transparency might have saved the marriage. I didn't see it that way. The problem wasn't what I didn't tell her. The problem was who she decided I was without ever asking. 14 months after the divorce finalized, Brandon called me from Chicago. Said he'd met someone. A woman who worked in his building, an architect. They'd been dating 4 months. He wanted to bring her home to meet everyone. Her name was Rachel. She was kind, funny, asked good questions. Liked Connor immediately. Spent 20 minutes talking to Lily about her art project. At dinner, she asked me about the farm, about the trust, about how I'd ended up funding a country club. It sounds like you saw a need and filled it, she said. That's admirable. Brandon smiled at her, then at me. It was a good moment. The kind that reminds you what you're building toward. Life wasn't perfect. Connor still had nightmares sometimes. Lily still asked occasionally if Mom was coming back. Brandon still carried anger about the stolen trust money. But we were healing, building something real, something honest. And that was more than enough. That was everything we needed.